Yeah.
Because we won't see it up here or anything, right? So we won't see the questions, because at the end of each talk, of which there are 13,
Yeah.
um, we open it up for a couple of questions. So you may get a typed in question if you could just come in and tell us or something, if that's okay.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
can you tell who's online?
If they are asking a question, they have to be logged in, which
Okay.
means if they're logged in, then I can see their name.
Yeah. Otherwise, you get just a number of how many are logged in?
Yes.
Because I'd love to know how many.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Okay.
I will let you know. And if anyone has any questions, I'll come running out and
Awesome.
give you a signal.
Thank you.
Would you like the microphones to just be left on the whole time, not go through the process of turning them off and
That's
on?
easy.
Okay.
This is a group that's not used to public speaking.
Yeah.
So, and I think I'm going to go first. We'll put it down since I'm
Okay.
first.
Sounds good.
And I'm going to try to remind each speaker to really talk into it.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Have you just been here all day?
All day, I just been eating popcorn for you all to get here. I think you're going to need more chairs. Ariel made fresh popcorn. Oh, no, no, yeah, we may need more chairs, but that's always a good sign. So Rick, the mover thing is, there aren't any more in there. They're all in the roving fund.
just noticed with the snow and the ice that when I lean to get away from the tree, then I get off balance a little bit. So I was like, oh, that's not a good idea. Just chip them off down. We'll do it. One at a time. Yes.
Streaming in, I think.
Yes. The challenge is that we don't know what all the little bugs are.
Okay, I hate to stop. It is on? Well, thank you all for coming. I hate to stop all this wonderful conversation, but we have people at home waiting to see us. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tucker Smith, and I'm here on behalf of the Welcoming Committee. And it's really wonderful to see. Thank you. It's really wonderful to see so many familiar faces here, but also to welcome so many of our new group members of the church and friends of the church who are here today to give stories. That's huge. So thank you. Quickly, for those of you who haven't been here before, and you old people can just turn off because you've heard this 100 times, but we started this 6 years ago, and it's really a drinking game. It was known as Drink, Talk, Learn in Waterloo, Canada, and it was started by a group of graduate students, and they started telling their 3-minute stories. And if they didn't finish in the 3 minutes, they had to chug their drinks. So I thought, well, that's a wonderful idea, but no, not for a church. So that's why I took the liberty and changed it to Sip, Talk, Learn. So we've had probably close to 150 speakers now. It's really hard to believe. And we've really gotten to know so many people better. And so it's just a thrill to have you all here today. We do have 13 storytellers today, and we will open it up to questions after each one speaks, and just, maybe 2 or 3 questions, because it's a big full house. In fact, last January, we only had 8 speakers, so this is really great. So we're going to get started with John Legates. And I just remind each speaker to please speak into the microphone because it is being recorded. And those at home, I hope you can hear it. And you're welcome to leave your questions in the chat. And Chris will come out from the back room and tell us what the questions are from the home audience. So, John Legates, you are up. Is we do say that the storytellers can make a very brief introduction first, just to sort of give a little bit of background, if you like. Otherwise, tell Lucy, and she will start the timer. And she will also hold up 1 minute left. We'll all be waving at you because it's hard once to get your attention sometimes, not yours specifically, but in general, and so that you have 1 minute left, okay?
Okay, so Lucy, this is the prelude.
Pull it up.
There we go. So I see some of you are here who were at the last Sip Talk of last season. And you may remember that my brother was here, and you welcomed him with a nice greeting round of applause. Okay, is that working? Yep, okay. And also we had a exciting story about a close encounter with a bear from you back there. It occurred to me I could take these 2 themes and tell you a story about an encounter between my brother and a bear. So this is still the prelude. He was an experienced camper and a sensible guy, and he was going to spend some nights in Upper Yosemite Valley, a place which is famous for its bears, and he knew it. And this is going to be an unusually short story, but it's going to be followed by a quiz. And I use a little bit of time for your responses. So here we go. Our brother had his dinner. He rolled up his pack in an appropriate way and got it up in a tree using the standard rules for avoiding bears. He rolled up his pants and his shirt into a pillow for himself. He put his boots as close to where his head would be as he possibly could. He crawled into the sleeping bag. He took off his glasses, put them as close to his head as he possibly could on the other side, and went to sleep. His sleep was undisturbed. There were no noises, no smells, no hot breath, nothing that would worry him. And he woke up in the morning, started his morning procedure, and discovered very quickly that something important was terribly wrong. And now we get to the quiz. Got any guesses as to what it was? Wait a minute. Sorry. Nope. Pack was still there. Good guess, but not true. He would have noticed that, I think. Okay, we have any more? No. No, the valley was gone. Any more? Okay, well, the answer, nope, it was still there. So the answer is the glasses. And they were still there, but they were squashed flat within a few inches of his head in the middle of a bear print. And any questions? Upper Yosemite Valley.
And did you ever go camping with them?
I have, and I had my own bear story from exactly the same place. If they want me for a 14th speaker, it's another short one.
So, good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see all of you here, particularly at my age. Yes, that's true. So, during the course of these STLs, so ably administered by Tucker Smith, who usually has her husband, RL, here as the chief stopwatch executioner. I don't know where he is this afternoon, but in any event, during the course of these STLs, I've been telling a few stories about life or death experiences, some of which I have survived by living by my wits, and others by an abundance of outsized luck. So this is a story about outsized luck. Here goes. So it's one of those golden autumn days in Yellowstone National Park, the northern tier, the Lamar River Valley. And Sarah and I stepped out of the car with our backpacks and hiked into the interior. Once you leave the road, you seldom see another Homo sapiens. And that was the case with us. We hiked deep into the interior, had a great day of hiking, and then on the way out decided to follow the Lamar River. And as we were walking along the Lamar River, Sarah says to me, "We haven't seen any wildlife all day." And of course, just a few minutes later, voila, there was the first sighting of the day, a lone bison standing right in the middle of the trail. And Sarah says, "You think those boys charge?" And I said, "Well, if you antagonize them, they may." She said, "Well, I'd be a little happier if we circumnavigate this guy." And so to get around the bison, as we're following a river trail, the Lamar, we decided to hike up this hill with tall grass. And the country there basically is rolling hills, tall grass, no trees, and the beautiful Lamar River. And so we started hiking up the hill, got about halfway up, and all of a sudden, out of the tall grass, no more than 10 yards in front of us, rising to its 7-foot height, with its paws up in the air and blood freely flowing down one paw, was a grizzly. And so we freeze, and your mind races. I realized, oh my God, we forgot our bear spray. And and I further took in the scene around us. We had the bison on the left of us, a river bluff behind us, a draw to the right of us, and the bear dead ahead. And just as Sarah and I took a step back off the bear, the most remarkable thing happened. Out of the draw to the right of us came, charging at full speed, 2 heavily armed rangers. They came up to us with a flourish. The horses were all lathered up, heaving and panting. And they said, "You guys are standing into terrible danger." And we said, "Yeah, we know. That's a grizzly." And and they said, "And what's more, he's feeding on a freshly killed bison." We said, "Oh, the mate to this guy?" And then we said, "Where did you guys come from?" And they said, "Well, you see that ridge up there? We were closing off this entire area to foot traffic, and we saw you on a collision course with the bear." And so, meanwhile, the bear is standing like this, just head moving back and forth, not moving. And so the rangers escorted us between the bison and the bear and got us out of harm's way. Any questions? Sarah's still here too. Okay.
Okay. I'll time myself. No, I know it's short. My name is Lucy Sachs, and I had a bump in a gland starting last May. I went. It's sort of right here. I went away for 5 months, as I do every summer, and it had looked twice. I had it looked twice down in Long Island, and they said nothing by doctors. It had grown quite a bit to the point that I could not hear if I had my phone on that ear. When I returned, I went immediately to my doctor, and she ordered images. Turns out what I needed was a biopsy. The result of the biopsy came back, and it was cancer, squamous. That doctor said 2 routes: operate right away, but it could cause facial paralysis, not good, or have immunotherapy, then operation, and then maybe radiation. That is the route that I am on. It is an infusion every 3 weeks for 4 sessions. My only side effect is that I am occasionally tired a few days later. Napping solves that. After 2 sessions, they would do a CAT scan or some sort of imaging to see if it had shrunk. But it had shrunk so much that that was canceled because you could hardly feel or see it. I have 1 more session, and then they will do imaging to see if it is totally gone. Then no operation. No idea about the radiation, but at that point, I really won't care. The drug that they infuse is semiplimab. A footnote is that it is exactly the drug that they may now use with immunotherapy for long COVID. I consider this a miracle solution. I have a friend who had cancer and was cured with this plan 5 years ago. For this talk, I Googled immunotherapy and actually discovered that I was pronouncing it wrong. And there are tons of results. Basically, it targets patients' immune systems and boosts or wakes it up. I hope I have not put you to sleep. I am so glad that Patrick is talking right behind me and can correct anything I said that was inaccurate. Any questions? Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Patrick.
Hi, so I'm Patrick Swarther McKay. I know many of you. I'm a pediatric oncologist. Without a topic per se, I decided to talk about what makes me passionate about the work that I do. It happens to be oncology, so it is a good follow-up. And I will talk a little bit about a type of immunotherapy that I work on. So go ahead and start timing me. There must be a better way. So at any given time, there are 17 million Americans with cancer. So it's not a few people, it's a good proportion of our country that deals with cancer. And many of them are offered chemotherapy, and you are offered chemotherapy, but you have gotten immunotherapy instead. You'll also get radiation afterwards. But as many of you know, chemotherapy comes with a lot of side effects, and people often suffer from their chemotherapy, and unfortunately some people even pass away from complications of chemotherapy. So is the attempt at cure worse than the disease? And you all have had experience with people with cancer, given the large number of people that have cancer. We all have about a 40 to 42% chance of getting cancer some point in our lifetimes, men slightly higher than women. So there must be a better way than just chemotherapy. And so it would be great to have a way to take the chemotherapy and target it to the tumor cells and not just have it go into your blood and spread throughout your entire body and cause other side effects. And we hope that if we can target the chemotherapy to your tumor, that could improve the outcome, improve the treatment of the tumor, but also decrease the side effects and make it a lot more tolerable than standard chemotherapy. And so for the past 8 years, I have been working, and many others have been working on this too, this idea that we can take antibodies, which are your immune system's way of targeting infections or cancers. That's what you're being woken up to your immune system targeting your cancer. We can take those antibodies and we can put the chemotherapy, the poisons, onto those antibodies. And when they get injected into your body, they go and find the tumor and they drop off the chemotherapy. And so your body sees a lot less chemotherapy than you would if they just injected it. More of it goes to your tumor. And so that technology is called antibody-drug conjugates. And I've been working in that area exclusively for cancers, and I am way late. So it has been challenging. We've been trying to make these for many years. We have about a 10% success rate with the drugs when we try to develop them. So it has been quite challenging. When I started this 8 years ago, there were only 3 of these drugs approved. Now there are 13 of these drugs approved, and we're hoping that this year, in 2025, 3 additional ADCs will be approved for different cancers. Let me give you an example of what great targeting this type of treatment can have. So patients with metastatic bladder cancer used to get chemotherapy combinations where they had less than a 50% response rate to the treatment, but of course everybody gets the side effects. Less than half of the patients got any benefit, but everybody's getting the side effects. And 9 out of 10 patients had relapsed or died within 2 years of treatment, and I am going to go over. On average, patients only lived 1.5 years getting this intense chemotherapy treatment. With an ADC, Padcev, a drug that was developed several years ago, and an immune stimulating drug like the one that Lucy is on, that combination, 2 out of 3 patients have a response to the treatment, so most patients will have some response. 4 out of 10 patients are still alive and have no relapse at 2 years, and almost half of patients are alive at 3 years after beginning the treatment. So that's essentially doubling the survival of what the previous chemotherapy did. And this treatment is given outpatient, like Lucy gets hers, and their side effects are relatively limited. So basically, the treatment of metastatic bladder cancer has been changed forever. It is now a much more tolerable treatment. Many more patients do well. They live much longer, and sort of a miracle. That is now past history for that particular cancer. The problem is that not every cancer has an ADC, and not every cancer and cancer patient are eligible for all of these various treatments. So there's still more work to be done. And I'd be happy to talk about more about, but that is why I do what I do and what I love. I call it the dream of the ADCs. Just imagine you get diagnosed with cancer and there is an ADC there for you. You can get it outpatient, you can continue with your life, and you actually have a better chance of survival with many, many fewer toxicities. So cancer treatment is changing. We are changing it. Hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, almost every cancer will have a better treatment option. We are not supposed to live as long as we do. They do, and actually I'm a pediatric oncologist, so children often get cancer, but they get cancer from genetic mistakes that occur in utero. The whole process of development from a single cell to a human is a miracle in and of itself. And what it takes to accomplish that biologically, there are occasional mistakes that occur. And then that is typically, for 90% of pediatric cancers, that's what causes their cancer. But that's also why we can cure about 80 to 90% of their cancers, because it's a single mistake, something that we can overcome. Most cancers in older people are accumulation of mistakes over your lifetime. Sun exposure, tobacco use, right? Being exposed to other chemicals, being exposed to radiation, because I hear back in the 30s and 40s they used radiation to measure your shoe size, right? I mean, we've done many things to ourselves environmentally and so forth that have caused this damage. But the reality is that we're not supposed to be living this long from a biologic perspective. And so the rate of cancer just goes up, 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 up the longer you live. And we can't prevent it from happening. We can, in some cases, by being good to ourselves and good to the environment, but we can't prevent cancer. You can't prevent all cancer, but we need better ways to treat it. And this is an example of how we're actually making real improvement that can better the lives of people that get cancer.
So I assume that because the immunotherapy is a newer treatment, it's probably more expensive than chemo. Do you have to fight with your health insurance company? Do you have to go for chemo to prove that it's not working for you before you can get the good stuff?
No. So if the drug company proves that the ADC, which is more expensive than chemo, if it is better than chemo and the FDA approves it, then all the US insurance companies will cover it, and Medicare, Medicaid pays for it as well. If it's experimental, meaning it hasn't shown that it's better than traditional chemotherapy, they're going to ask you to use chemotherapy first or enroll in a clinical trial where you have access to those drugs. Great, thank you very much.
Nina Danforth is next. Sorry about that. What a way to start, huh? Sorry about that.
Oh, thank you. So, yeah, I'm a newbie here, so never done this before. A little nervous, but thanks for the challenge. Just chill.
Friendly group.
Got it. So it is the year of the snake this year, I'm told. I think I got that just recently in the newsletter. So I thought I would tell a little encounter with a snake. Okay. So picture this, a beautiful day in the Adirondacks, July day recently. A beautiful shore of Lake George, in a wild part of Lake George. My family, my combined family, barefoot, dripping wet after a swim, coming up a trail underneath a rocky ledge. Everything is copacetic, and we're laughing and dripping. And my stepson's in front of me, is a very observant guy, says, "Rattler," in a kind of offhanded way, trying to be not very nervous. So, yeah, he's there. The rattler's there in the dried leaves, very, very camouflaged. And my stepson had put his arm out and to stop us all and calm us down, and especially me, because my heart was in my throat. I was in overdrive for that scene because I managed the house for summer guests, and I'm already thinking, oh shit, what am I going to do? It's the last thing I wanted to see is a rattler. And yet, all my life I've wanted to see a rattler because they live happily in the Adirondacks and at Lake George. So I wondered, would I have seen it? If my stepson had not seen it, I don't think so. It was so well camouflaged, so beautiful, about 4 feet long, but not coiled up. And so I said to the kids, let's go easy. Let's just take a look at this guy or gal. We didn't know what sex it was. But so we managed to calm down and look at it. And we saw its tongue reaching out for information. We saw that it was relaxed, and it was checking us out. That was the cool thing. It was checking us out. So that's about it for that observation. But several months later, I ran across this wonderful book written by a friend. It's called Landscape with Reptile. And it's written by a local author, Tom Palmer. And it's about the rattlesnakes of Massachusetts, especially in our part of the world. So I quickly read it. When I found this book, I realized I hadn't read it, and I got in touch with Tom. My book group was invited on a walk with him up on Hancock Hill. If any of you know the Blue Hills, Hancock is the wildest, next to the Blue Hill where the observatory is. And so there we were, listening to the stories of how they're still here. Tom wouldn't tell us where they are, but they're still here. And it's pretty amazing that this animal, in spite of persecution for hundreds and hundreds of years, people trying to kill it and get rid of it, is still here. Okay.
Any questions for Nina? Oh, I hope we don't see one soon. Mary Hartman.
Hi, everyone. By way of introduction, I'm new to First Parish Lincoln. I live in West Concord. I also happen to be the chair of the select board for the town of Concord, which, as you know, has a lot of rewards and frustrations. So in order to ground myself, every morning I take a very long walk with my dog, and this is a story that happened during one of those walks. So my dog and I are walking along Farrer Pond in Lincoln, and all of a sudden, she gets very excited about something. I'm lost in thought, but she's very excited. And we see that there's a deer stuck in the mud on the corner, on the shore. And I walk over. It's a beautiful deer. It's a young buck. It has the velvet still on its antlers. It's stuck. It's stuck up to its chest. So without thinking, I get into the pond, thinking that I can get behind it and lift it up. So I do that, and I get into the pond, and I get behind the deer, and I put my arms around it, and I go to lift like that, and I hear a pop in my back, and a shooting pain, and now both of us are stuck in the mud. I'm up to my knees in mud. The poor deer is still stuck in the mud. For the first time in my life, I start yelling for help. I'm actually yelling for help. Luckily, a woman is running by who I know, stops, comes over, helps me extricate myself from the mud, And she's a thoughtful person, so she's thinking, what can we do? What can we do here to get the deer out? While this is happening, two young guys are walking by. They stop to assess the situation to decide they don't want anything to do with it. And they keep walking. So finally, my friend Carlene decides we really should have called the fire department. She gets on the phone, calls the fire department. My dog isn't helping. She's just going crazy. And I decide the best thing for me to do would be to leave, go get medical help for myself, and let Carlene deal with the fire. So I'm walking out. Firemen are walking in. They said they got a call. I said yes. I direct them to where the deer goes. I go home. I call the doctor. A few weeks later, I was telling a friend this story, Terry Green, who many of you know. I was telling Terry Green this story. The next day, she sends me an article from your local paper saying that, in fact, the fire department did extricate the deer, put it on the shore. It was exhausted, so it just laid on the shore. And they came back to see it a few hours later, startled it, and it jumped back in. But this time, it didn't get stuck, apparently. It did extricate itself pretty quickly, and it ran into the grass. So the deer story ends well. The deer ran into the grass, and I did get a compression fracture, but it's a 5-week recovery. I'm recovered. I'm back to normal. So all's well that ended well. I should have trained my dog to do that, No. No. Okay, thank you.
Judy Carney is next.
My name is Judy Carney. I've lived in Lincoln now for 3.5 years. I moved from Salem, Massachusetts, where I lived for 48 years, and moved to the Commons in Lincoln because my husband had been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. A very good move for me, hard, but a good one. And I came across this ad to give you a segue as to what I'm going to talk about. This is what the ad said. Never married and in radiant good health. Must adhere to strict control standards, figure control standards. Straight teeth and legs. Clear, smooth skin. Willing to retire between the ages of 30 and 32 to take on the greater complexities of marriage. Now, anyone guess what that might be? Airline stewardess. You can begin. That was an ad for an airline stewardess. I grew up in Northborough, Massachusetts, a town of about 5,000 people. I had never gone anywhere except New England, never been on an airplane, and when I was in 7th grade, my mother said, it might be nice to think about being a flight attendant, or at that time, stewardess. And I thought that planted the seed in my head. So I read the ad, fulfill your dreams of travel, meet interesting people, enjoy travel privileges, make a unique salary of $285 a month. I said, I knew this is what I wanted to do. So my top choice at the time was TWA. And I applied and was accepted for a 6-week course in Kansas City, Missouri, where I ended up staying 5 years. I was hired in the era of girdles were mandatory. Height and weight were checks that we had to have before we went on a plane. Of course, we didn't change that much in height, but we did in weight. Let's see, where am I here? Our hair could be no longer than an inch when we pulled straight down from the nape of your neck. We had to wear Persian melon, lipstick, and nail polish. We could not be engaged or married. We had to be at least 20. And I had to sign a piece of paper saying I would quit at 32. I was ancient then. So the uniforms were designed to impress the businessman as well as make a fashion statement. So we had people like Oleg Cassini, Valentino, and Ralph Lauren design the uniforms. And we were required at the time to wear a hat and gloves. One of the uniforms was a paper uniform, and it was designed to talk about TWA's service for, it was called Foreign Accent Flights. We wore gold mini dresses. Remember, they're made out of paper. We changed into them when we got on board. We had a toga for Italy, and a wench costume for England, and we wore hostess pajamas for a Manhattan penthouse. Needless to say, we carried Scotch tape and scissors to make changes to these uniforms, and fortunately, it did not last long. I was with TWA from 1964 to 1975, quitting when I was 3 months pregnant. Another no-no. I didn't tell them I was pregnant. I was based in Kansas City, New York, and Boston. I flew out of New York for my last 3 years of my career, and I had amazing times during my travels. I met Harry and Bess Truman, Robert Goulet, Lawrence Welk, Governor Volpe, Julia Childs, Yo-Yo Ma, Michael J. Fox, to just name a few. I spent New Year's Eve in New York in Times Square. I also spent Bastille Day in Paris. I spent a 5-day charter in Las Vegas, and I went to Switzerland and Austria on our honeymoon. It was a pretty neat job. This is the paper uniform. I can pass it around if you want to. And this is the way we all came out looking like cookie cutter, in our uniforms. And this last one here is my graduation with our pillbox hats. Do you have any questions?
Did you love your job?
I loved my job. I really loved it. And if I were to be hired now, I don't think I'd love it.
Travelers were nicer then.
Absolutely. They dressed up. We spent time with them. We could really get to know people. It was wonderful. I loved it. Any other questions? Thank you.
Yes, that is me. I am Peter Pease, and I have been thinking about the way that things get passed on from generation to generation. It's just been really, the older I get, it seems, the more I'm thinking about this river that we're in. So, in my family, when I was 10 years old, I remember going to a garage with my father where he had just quit his job and he was starting a new business. And he went to MIT and he used to be working at Stanley Works and what are you doing in this garage? And he was starting a business to manufacture metal boxes because he was so furious with his management at Stanley Works where he was working, because that Christmas he had a great year and he was looking for his bonus, and the guy who was his vice president above him stole all of it. And Dad went in there the next day, flipped the papers over on the desk. I learned that later. And then he said, okay, started his own business. And my mother worked in there with him. She was the office manager, accountant, and everything. And I grew up just thinking, you know what? You can do what you want. Go independent. And that was one of the main reasons I think I felt confident enough to get out of law school and just immediately start my own business and then start another firm and many years after that. And I've looked at my kids. My daughter Pauline lives in town, and she went to RISD, became an artist, and has her own business. Nicole also is in North Carolina, and she decided, okay, yes, I am going to get certified to be doing this medical practice, and on her own is doing that. And Chris is doing very well, but not quite in the same way. Annie, our youngest child, has been doing the same thing, working here at Codman, running the flower scene there. And I love the way this is flowing along. And today, just before we came here, I got to go and take my 8-year-old granddaughter skating on the cemetery pond. One of my favorite activities. And a few years ago, I took her the first time she ever had gone and taught her how to skate, skating backwards and holding her hands. And little by little, she's going by herself. And you should see her today. And she says, this is my favorite thing. I'm going to remember this forever. How lucky can I be?
Any questions for Peter?
Peter, did you share your observation of that entrepreneurship with your children? Did you sort of feed them this is something that was exciting for me or for my dad to do?
A little bit. Mostly it was just them noticing, oh, you're on your own, and they could see how much I've always enjoyed being able to be the person who is making the decisions about my life, what I'm going to be doing. And so, but no, we did not have classes on the subject.
Led by example.
Yeah, right.
Christine.
Hello. This will be the third one about jobs in a row, so that's kind of interesting. I'm Christine Size. I live at the end of Lincoln Road with my wife, Kelly. We recently became members, and we have a 6-year-old son, Beckham, who you will see wildly running around sometimes. But we are very, very happy to be here at First Parish and be part of this community and to have been welcomed so warmly by this community. So I wanted to talk about another community that I was part of that was very special to me. So I went to Warren Wilson College, which is outside of Asheville, North Carolina. It's a small work-study school, which is one of only a handful of work-study schools in the country. It's on 1,200 acres, and the students that go there help run the college by doing various jobs. And it's funny that I ended up there. It's a different story because I was on my way to the University of Georgia, which has a student population of about 30,000. And when I went to Warren Wilson in 1994, there were about 500 students. So I feel very fortunate to have gone there. And so I just wanted to tell you about some of the jobs that I had there during my time. So first up I was the English secretary, which I thought sounded really sophisticated, being an English major, and it was something that you had to apply for before you went. And only 2 people got the position, so I thought that this was very special. And I did get it, but it ended up just being a lot of copying and typing. But I did get to know my professors that I would have for the next 4 years and kind of get a sneak peek into the assignments that were upcoming, so that was good. Next up was security, which meant that we went around and secured the buildings at night, which could be a little bit scary sometimes, but you got to drive the golf cart around and be with your friends. The bad part was that you had to do an overnight, 1 night a month, and stay up the entire night, which was really difficult for me. But all in all, that was a fun job to have. I also was on heavy duty, where we set up for events, moving furniture when it needed to be done. And I still can remember Rodney, our boss, when we were stacking up the tables afterwards, saying rough to the rough, smooth to the smooth as we put away the tables. I was also in dining food service. And I did serve food, but the best part of that job was actually in the dish room, where we got to listen to really loud music and spray each other with the hose. And it was oddly satisfying sending all of those food trays through the industrial dishwashers on the conveyor belt. So that one was really fun. I was also on the school magazine. My best friend was the editor. You could make your own hours. We got to interview fun people. But by far my favorite job was catering, and you had to be asked to be on the catering crew, so it's kind of special. And it was fun because you were always doing fun events, and people were in a good mood, and you served beautiful food, and you knew what you were going to wear because it was just black and white every time. But what I really loved about that job was my boss, Brian, who personified what being cool under pressure meant. And it didn't matter anything that we ran out of or anything that was dropped on the floor or anything that went wrong. He just kind of surveyed the situation and said, okay, what else do we have? And we would make do with what we had. And so every time I'm getting ready for a party or making anything and something goes wrong, I just remember Brian and I say, it's okay. What else do we have? And it was a really great experience being at school there. So it was a really nice community. Thanks. I think that was it. Any questions? Any questions about Warren Wilson? Or yeah.
So why did you change your mind and not go
Yeah, I was going to UGA. I was going to be a journalism major, and my friend Whitney had not decided yet, and she asked me to go to a college fair with her at our local mall in Atlanta. And so I went with her, and she was a horsewoman, and she saw a picture of Warren Wilson's draft horses. And because we had a farm there and they helped. And so she stopped to talk to the person, and the person said to me, the recruiter said, oh, do you want to fill out a postcard too? And I said, oh, yeah, sure, I know where I'm going, but sure, I was being polite and I filled it out. And then the more I found out about it, I knew that that was the place for me. And to my parents' eternal credit, they allowed me to go, and it changed my life. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Christina Brown. Many of you know I'm a teacher, and I recently left the school where I was teaching, and this is a story about a student. It's also about me, and I just realized that there's a title to it, and the title is When a Shell Becomes a Key. Sam had dark curly hair and inquisitive eyes. He was always eager to take in his surroundings. He had a bounce in his walk, and so I could always recognize him all the way to the end of the hall as he made his way to my class, usually the last one in. He'd sit down and have to be reminded to take out his homework and his materials for class, but he wanted to know right away what we were going to be doing that day. He had been in public school the year before, and for some reason did not get the services he needed that year and had a terrible time with his classmates and his teachers. He had been teased and bullied. He had not had the one-on-one aid experience that was required by his IEP. Rather than fight the public school, his parents decided to have him return to Quincy Catholic Academy for 6th grade for a year, while we evaluated him and tried out different learning strategies and support and helped his parents plan the next steps in his education. He started the year feeling positive, but he immediately had some standoffs with a few of the teachers at QCA over his behavior, outbursts, screaming, abruptly leaving class, and so on. Most of all, he wanted to draw figures in dark pencil who had distinct personalities in his black notebook, rather than do the assigned work. He did not want anyone to touch his notebook or touch him or his things. He had autism, was somewhere on the spectrum, and at the same time, he was clear to me that he valued his neurological difference. We worked out a code. When I wanted him to pay attention to something in class or redirect him to a new task, I would give him a seashell that was turned down on his desk. He'd finger the grooves and run his finger up and down and smile. The tactile feedback of this natural thing grounded him and was beautiful. In class, I would tap it gently to remind him to pay attention or start a task, and he would nod in assent and understanding. It was our language. Other students were not particularly aware of it or didn't care, as long as Sam was quiet and Sam enjoyed our code. Sometimes he would ask to see my seashell collections, and he would hold the large conch to his ear and hear the ocean waves. It was a language of nature, and it soothed him and redirected him.
Did other teachers use this methodology?
I told them about it. They didn't, I mean, I was kind of an oddball, you know. They didn't think it really would work. They wouldn't try it. So it was, and I think teachers just need to work out their own codes, I guess, or have their own signals. So.
Okay, Corey.
Hi, everybody. A couple disclaimers. First of all, I told Sue I was doing this, and she's like, "Oh, what story are you telling?" And I told her which story it was, and she said, "Oh no," and asked me, "Please don't tell them that." But it's too late, so don't have another one. And just another disclaimer that the story contains depictions of psychedelic drug use. The author does not endorse or encourage the use of illegal substances. Psychedelic drugs can have unpredictable and potentially harmful effects on both mental and physical health. Engaging in such activities may also be illegal in your jurisdiction. The content herein is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. Listener discretion is advised. And yeah, just as an intro, sorry, this is a little long intro, but basically I had been sober from drugs and alcohol. I had a very, I was a dysfunctional alcoholic, and so at age 23 I got sober from drugs and alcohol. And about 10 years into recovery, I read Michael Pollan's book on how to change your mind and got very interested, and was at kind of a point where I felt like I could really use a deepening spiritual experience of some kind. So I acquired some, there's no teenagers here, right? It's magic mushrooms, and decided that I was going to go on an internal spiritual quest for self-improvement. And got all I was very careful with my, they say, set and settings, so I had ticked all my boxes, got everything ready, put my pajamas on, I did some yoga, made some tea, and settled in to explore the inner workings of my psyche. And that's where the story begins. That's cheating, I know, I'm sorry. So this is a rainy day. I about an hour into this experience, I'm just weeping tears of joy because my just the love of all my ancestors has cracked open the icy shell of my heart, and and flowers were springing forth out of it, and everything was very lovely, but it literally like tear soaked. And then I have my headphones in, and suddenly the new agey whatever music I'm listening to, it gets interrupted, and it says, "Call from Margaret Flint." And I was like, oh dear. So this is my mother-in-law, for anyone who doesn't know. And I thought I had turned it on airplane mode, but it went through somehow. So I'm like, no. And then I'm trying to end the call, but I answer the call. So I'm like, give me the new age music. And Margaret is just like, Corey? And I'm like, what? Oh dear. What do you say? What do you say in this situation? So I said, like, but how would you do, or something. And she's like, what? And I'm like, hello. And she goes, are you busy? I said, a little, but what's going on? And she says, Merlin the horse, who's our 37-year-old horse, is going to be put down today. And would you possibly be able to help bury him? And I was just silent for a long time. It seemed to me for 2 to 3 years, from my perspective. And she's like, you there? And I was like, I sure can. Yes, okay. Okie dokie doo. I'll be right there. So now we've got an ordeal on our hands. Dressing took an eternity. It took me a long time to remember you can turn the lights on in your room. And I'm like, what do folks wear again? And I finally stumble outside, and it's dreary, and the death is just all around me. Everybody looks like a zombie. Everybody's been crying, so their makeup is running, and their just eyes are, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Hi, everybody, how can I help you? Like, I'm seeing things at this point. I'm very, very high on mushrooms. And so they say, can you stay with the horse? The horse is there, and they're just like, stay with the horse. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. So I just repeating to myself, stay with the horse. Don't go anywhere. You're going to stay with the horse. And then I'm standing there with the horse, and then I realize this is very silly. So I started smiling at the kind of absurdity of the situation, but then I realized I'm standing next to the road smiling at a dead horse, and people are just driving by seeing this subliminally, and so I tried to cover it with a tarp, but it still, I don't think it did a very good job covering it up. End of the story is with Sue's cousin came, we buried the horse. Yeah, everybody looked terrible. The horse looked great, strangely enough. But eventually we rolled it into the bucket of the tractor. He reminded me, this horse could still kick you. And I said, well, that would happen to me. But we did the job, gave it a proper burial, and then I just wandered into the woods and hugged the trees and congratulated all the ferns and plants for doing a really good. They were just all doing a perfect job, as far as I could tell. Nobody was judging anybody. It was like this is the way things should be. And yeah, I think if you just, I guess it was a lesson that learned a little about impermanence and attachment, and if you just show up and do your best to make life better for people, then you can kind of have a good experience while you're here on Earth in a human body.
I should have been using mushrooms when I was doing this one. So I'm Katie Walker. I live a couple doors down from the library next to Diana Smith. And I was going to talk about a magical moment in childhood, but it pales in comparison to what you just heard. So I wanted you to all to sort of remember these magical moments in childhood when sort of everything comes together and it's just right for an amazing experience. And for me, it was the summer that I discovered tree bending. I think I must have been like 10 or 11, and I'm not sure what prompted my siblings and me to start tree bending, but we were always in search of adventures during those long months of summer on the lake that we spent our summers on in Maine. I have also no idea whether my parents had any idea what we were doing, or they only seemed to be concerned if we didn't show up for dinner. But I do remember setting off on one sunny summer day in search of the perfect trees for tree bending. We headed for the long dirt road that led up through the hayfields to my grandparents' farm, which was nearby, where we hoped we might find the right kind of trees, reaching out to sunlight. In tree bending, you need a tall sapling with just the right diameter to be strong but flexible, and have adequate branches to be able to allow you to climb as close to the top as possible. And once high up in the tree, you reach up, grab the top, and kick out and toward the sky until the tree bends gracefully to the ground and lands you gently on your feet. If the tree's not strong enough, you risk breaking the tree and a more hasty descent to the ground. But that day we were lucky, and we worked our way all the way up the road, bending trees again and again and again. After that summer, I tried it once or twice again, but whether I'd grown too much, or I couldn't find the right trees, or maybe I'd grown too aware of the dangers of what I was doing, but I never quite experienced that exhilaration of kicking out toward the sky and floating down through the air, pulling the tree behind me. But I've never forgotten it. Yeah. Well, there is a swinger of birches, but I didn't know about it then, although my dad was a big fan of Robert Frost. I'd have to go back and read the poem, but I remember, yeah. But they would probably be great for tree bending, actually, because they're pretty flexible and whatever. But I wouldn't recommend it right now at this age, but.
My name is Steve Cropper, and one of the greatest joys of my life is delving into lots of different professional areas and different sort of subcultures. And the irony is that there are dozens of people out there who, because of that, think that I'm an expert in many fields I'm not. The people who think I'm a meteorologist or a banker or a real estate person or an engineer or a professional political operative. And it's funny, I meet them and they think that I am an expert. But the fact is, I'm really an expert in nothing because, this is the introduction, because I was in clean energy for 4 years when I got out of college, and the industry collapsed, and all of the skills I had no value, so I vowed never to be an expert in anything, instead to skip across the top of the waves of different professions. So I actually am an expert in nothing. And now I'm starting. I extend my hand. Mr. Bloomberg, Steve Cropper, Eagle Scout from Boston, pleased to meet you. Steve, Mike Bloomberg, Eagle Scout from Medford, pleased to meet you. I wished he'd become perhaps our president. So the story is called 10 Billionaires, correction, 11 Billionaires. Richard Branson, with his eyes, he undressed every woman who walked by. I guess womanizing was part of being in the music business. I'm downtown in Houston, left a meeting, needed to find a bathroom desperately. I spot a YMCA. YMCAs have bathrooms. I walk in, I present myself to the clerk. May I use your bathroom? Are you a member? No. Well, only members can use the bathroom. And then I look on the wall and it says that this is the T. Boone Pickens YMCA, noted oil man. T. Boone and I used to do business together. I pulled up a photograph on my phone, I held it up and I said, see, that's me, that's him. Can I use your bathroom? The answer was yes. The clerk nodded me forward. T. Boone was a scoundrel who pumped oil and sunk John Kerry's campaign with the falsehoods from the Swift Boat campaign. Not a nice man. Bill from Maine, another billionaire, a footwear heir. A delicate conversation. Bill, we're building a skate park. Do you think you could fund it? He says, you have to move the plan along a little further and then we could fund it. Bill Cummings, many of you met him. Folksy started an ice cream, subtly very cozy with permitting authorities. His property taxes support schools, fire, and police. Every year he gives away $100,000 to 100 groups. He's a very charitable, honorable man. And he somehow responds to my phone calls asking for advice on entrepreneurship. Roy Park, your peacocks are in my yard, I call him. What do you want me to do? He says, I'll send a man over right away. I stand watch. The man arrives. The peacocks are herded into the truck. They're irritated, but they're going home. Roy Park was a right-wing broadcaster today who would seem genteel compared to today's actors. Phil, I won't say his last name, Phil in medical software, another billionaire. He corners me at an office party. Steve, do you think you could get my wife a permit so we could fly the helicopter to the office? There's terrible traffic and she likes to run along the Charles River. Bill, or Phil, I'll work on it. Pat McGovern, a shy tech publishing entrepreneur. He delivered Christmas bonuses in cash by hand, handed out thousands of dollars to each staff member, $100 bills in the envelope. Macworld, Tech World, PC World, he and printed paper publications are all gone now. Michael Dell, 1988, pudgy guy, came over to tell his story. We bought him a sandwich. 2 years after founding the company as College Dorm, never name a company after yourself unless you're Mike Bloomberg or Michael Dell. Everyone should collect something. I collect billionaires, apparently. So this is the photograph that allowed me to use the bathroom. See, there's me. That's T. Boone. That's his name. Can I use the bathroom?
I wish you could talk to some of the billionaires today. Wow, wasn't that fabulous? I swear no one tells me their story ahead of time, so it's a chance. Somebody told me they have a story they're not sure it's quite proper yet, so we're looking forward to her talking next time. This February on the 9th, we're going to tell love stories, which will be our next Sip Talk Learn. And believe it or not, I already have 8 people signed up. That seems to be our most exciting topic. And then in March, I think it's the 19th, we will have stories here again, and that's going to be open. But I'd encourage anybody who has a Lincoln swap check story to share it with us, because everybody has a good dump story, I think. And so if you want to share it in March, that would be great. We would not share it at Love Stories, but in March would be perfect. But thank you all for coming. Look how dark it is already. There's lots of food and drink in the back for you to share and meet the new people that you've just met and heard their stories. And thank you all for coming, and thank you all for speaking, especially those of you who've never even been in this room for this event before. I appreciate it immensely. So thanks again, and Happy New Year.